You are making the world a better place by listening to the Joy of Living podcast. This is your guide to achieving a more purposeful, powerful, and positive life. Join Barry Shore in unlocking the best version of you and becoming happier, healthier, and wealthier. And now, here's your ambassador of joy, Barry Shore.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Maybe you're good-looking because you're always looking for and finding the good. You found good in abundance because you've tuned in consciously and conscientiously to the Joy of Living with your humble host, Barry Shore, known as the Ambassador of Joy. Notice I didn't say the Ambassador of Joy, the Ambassador of Joy. And you tuned in for one reason and one reason only, and it's the best reason in the whole world, because you care the most, the entire world, about you. Y-O-U. And that's great, because when you become the best you make the world a better place. You build more bridges of harmony. You create more joy, happiness, peace, and love in the world. And you are going to be rock today because I have a special guest for you. And he's going to give you insights that you never even thought possible. So get ready. It's going to be really a lot of fun. We're going to tell Andy to F you later in the show, and he'll laugh, and we'll have a lot of fun with that. So you tuned in, and along with 3,613 people around the world. And you did it because you know that on this show, we discuss the three fundamentals of life. And when you live with these three fundamentals, the result is you'll be happier, healthier, and wealthier. Who doesn't want that? So the first fundamental, number one, is life. Your life has purpose. And when you lead a purpose-driven life, the result is number two happens. It's a good number two. You go MAD. MAD is a wonderful acronym that stands for make a difference. Lead a purpose-driven life, you make a difference in the world. And the third is to uncover the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms. Simple example, right now this show is being carried over the internet all over the world. We have listeners from most countries in the world, including communist China and the former Soviet Union and Russia, and of course throughout Africa and Europe and Latin America and America, etc. So I want to make mention that it's really important to understand www. Asking me what does it stand for? They'll tell you it's to do with the internet. And factually speaking, they're correct. However, in our world, the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, www stands for what a wonderful world. And what is a word, right? W-H-A-T-A. And a tip of the hat and a big thank you to Louis Armstrong Satchmo for enabling that song to go viral and touch not just hundreds of thousands or millions or tens of millions, but billions of people around the planet. And every time you hear the opening bars of what a wonderful world, what do you do right away? You smile. Now, SMILE is one of the greatest acronyms you can ever internalize, utilize, and leverage in life, because SMILE stands for seeing miracles in life every day. That's right, seeing miracles in life every day. Now, I'm privileged to speak to people all over the world through this medium, millions of people every month. And recently I spoke in person to a group of 1,172 people. I'm telling you the story about Barry Shore and seeing miracles in life every day. And some people raise their hand and say, hey, Barry Shore, I've been up for hours already. I haven't seen any miracles. And I asked them, are you here? Can you hear? Can you stand still? I can't do that. Can you walk? I can barely do that. Do you have water to drink? Do you have food to eat? Do you have a place to sleep? Do you have family, your friends? Every single one of those is a miracle. What's the proof? Simplest proof. 1 million people didn't get out of bed this morning. You know why? They died. By definition, if you're watching or listening, you didn't. Therefore, you have an obligation to live life to the full, to live life exuberantly. And you're going to be learning about that a little bit in just a little bit. So in the meantime, I want to share with you a quick story. It's about me. Imagine, if you can, I'm standing up in the morning, completely healthy and hearty, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. And in the evening, I'm in the hospital, totally, completely paralyzed from the neck down. And it was not from an automobile accident. It wasn't a spinal injury. It was a rare disease that took over my body and rendered me a quadriplegic. Nothing in my body moved. I can only communicate by blinking my eyes. I was 144 days in the hospital. I was in a hospital bed my own for 2 years. I couldn't move, couldn't turn over by myself. I was 4 years in a wheelchair. I had braces on both my legs, from my hips to my ankles. That was progress. Thank God today I'm able to be vertical and ambulatory with about a 7-foot walking wand. So I'm a triped, not a biped. Can't walk up a stair by myself. Can't walk up a curb by myself. I have help 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. You hear my voice, positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant, all because of one word. One word, and that word is smile. That's right, seeing miracles in life every day. I got to tell you a quick story. My 8-year-old niece comes over to me a few weeks ago, and she says, Uncle Barry, can we spell smile S-M-I-E-L? I thought about it. Smile sounds the same. Why not? I asked her, how come? She says, because then it would stand for seeing miracles in everyday life. Out of an 8-year-old. But what was she doing? She was creating the kind of world that she wants to live in. Now, CREATE is a wonderful acronym. It stands for causing, rethinking, enabling all to excel. And that's talking about a shift in your perspective. Now, I've been working with people for almost 5 decades. And I can tell you, people that come to me, very accomplished, high on paper, these people drop the F in shift. And the other stuff happened. Going to be effing careful with your Fs. You want to shift your perspective just a little bit. Then you can internalize, utilize, and leverage the 6 most important words you'll ever learn. And these are choice, not chance, determines your destiny. That's right. How you choose to respond in any given situation will determine the path of your life and the trajectory. Now, before we bring on wonderful Andy, I just want to warn everybody that we do use a lot of 4-letter words. I even use the 4-letter FU word, and I do it for the shock value, and it's fun. Now, of course, the 4-letter words that we use, because we live in the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, are love, life, hope, play, pray, free, gift, swim. And the 4-letter FU word is fun. Fun. That's right. FU, capital N, capital N. So, right away, some people raise their hands and say, Barry Shore. Fun is only spelled with 3 letters. Not in our world. In the world of positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, fun is spelled F-U, capital N, capital N. So after the show, when you see your family, friends, they have a twinkle in your eye, a smile on your face. I want you to point your finger and say, F-U, everybody. Remember to add capital N, capital N. They'll say, what are you talking about? Where'd you get that? I listened to Barry Shore. He had this great guy, Andy, on. You got their attention. Now you can share with them some really great things that were going to help you, make you happier, healthier, and wealthier. So before we bring on Andy, I just want to urge everybody, as we do every week, use the 2 most powerful words in the English language 3 times a day from now and the rest of your life, and you will be happier, healthier, and healthier. And these 2 words are thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks stands for to harmonize and nurture kindness. Kind is a great word that means keep inspiring noble deeds. I can't think of anybody right now that I want to share with you that inspires noble deeds more than the wonderful, fabulous Andy Caldwell. Andy, please say hello to 511,717 people around the world.
Hello, and Barry, it's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for having me on your show.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. Andy, when was the last time somebody said F you to you and you laughed?
Different version than what you've been preaching.
I'm so happy to have him on. He is such an interesting person, a character. This is what we're going to do today is so American. Because I think the kind of things that you do, Andy, and you're unique, let's be blunt, is a very specialized situation that is unique and endemic to our American experience of independence and being able to look at things that are happening and comment on them. You certainly can't do that in most of the large countries in the world. And even in the place that's supposedly free called Europe, they frown upon such things. So you are, for want of a better term, because you told me yourself, you are a local government watchdog. So let's unpack that and say, okay, Andy Caldwell, what the heck is a local government watchdog?
Well, thank you again for the opportunity. To make a long story short, about 35 years ago, the business community, mostly manufacturing, industry, energy sectors, we're literally being put out of business here in California, and they're still being put out of business. There's very few left. And these are the best paying jobs there are. And of course, they also help provide an affordable cost of living for everybody else. You know, one of the biggest hidden taxes in America and the world is the cost of fuel. California goes through 1 billion gallons of gas a month. So every time it goes up $1 or $2, that's a multi-billion-dollar tax. So anyway, I had actually grown up relatively poor, but got a chance to go to UC San Diego. Was going to be a lawyer, decided not to be a lawyer, and then I had a fairly, let's say, not so valuable social science degree. So I got a job in a factory, and I ended up making so much working in that factory, I couldn't afford an entry-level white-collar job. And I had an epiphany. I had an epiphany then that blue-collar manufacturing was a pathway to the middle class that's ignored by the, I'm going to call them the elites in our society, who think you have to go to college and work white collar if you're going to make something of yourself. And these people were allowing us to have cars, put fuel in it, have food. You know, they fed us, clothed us, housed us, and everything else. And so my perspective on life changed through the School of Hard Knocks. I always call it the Graduate School of Hard Knocks. And so I got a job in industry, and then I ended up getting promoted to management. And I started realizing the degree that government was making it impossible for us to survive. And I got involved with a group of other business people to push back against the overregulation. And we formed a coalition 35 years ago called the Coalition of Labor, Agriculture, and Business. Believe it or not, I've had almost every union on my board during that 35 years, as well as all of every sector of agriculture in our region and all facets of business, from surgeons to you know, people that drill for oil, you know, everything in between. And we found out that the government didn't want to hear what we had to say. So we started writing newspaper columns and started working on radio. And so I've written over 2,000 op-eds, mostly local. And I've been on the air for 30 years, mostly local. I'm on 3 stations that have simulcasts. And I've written for 2 or 3 different papers in the region. And of course, I am sad to say that I've always been in the media that's legacy media that's on its deathbed.
Okay, so
I made the leap to what you're doing right now.
Okay, so this is really so wonderful. I don't want to stop you. I want to unpack some things because, again, first of all, we have a worldwide audience. Mm-hmm. Second thing is that even in the United States, we have a very large audience, obviously, hundreds of thousands of people. People oftentimes don't understand what happened to the Golden State, certainly in Southern California. And you are the embodiment of what you've been discussing with us. And I really want to urge people to understand 3 things. And only because I listened to what you have to say. And I'm very intent upon listening to you, Andy. Number 1 is, and you said it so eloquently, that as a blue collar worker, you actually could have a living wage. You could own a car or cars, housing, have things. That was number 1. Number 2, it was a path to the white collar world if you wanted it, which you chose to do. And number 3, that what you were able to do was to create a coalition that is very, on its surface, antithetical to each other.
Yep. Yeah.
And again, I say this with great love and respect to everybody who lives in Southern California. And we're using this as a microcosm, by the way, because what happens in Southern California, for good or ill, and we won't comment on which it is at the moment, however, you can see the results in a lot of places around America, went out to other places in the United States and caused havoc with what we'll call, for want of a better term, the blue collar world. and really created a split from the very haves to people that have not. And I want to make everybody aware that Southern California is, you don't have to take my word for it, you can just look it up and ask any of the millions of people who live here, one of the greatest climates on earth. There's no question. And there are 3 or 4 places in the world that have the same climate on the coast of Southern California. It's called the Mediterranean climate. And you can find it in Israel or Lebanon, that area. You can find it in Perth, Australia, and you can find it in Southern California. And that's why millions of people flock to Southern California. However, there was a shift at some point, maybe the 80s. Certainly when I got to California in 1975, it wasn't like this. It was a very, for want of a better term, we'll call it Republican-oriented state, which meant it was very conservative. And then there was a shift that allowed the Democratic Party to come in and control the legislature and such. Again, we're talking about politics, and yet we don't want to be accusing everybody of malfeasance. What we do want to make sure is everybody understands that, as you said so eloquently, Andy, the result is that people cannot live on a living wage because manufacturing, which was the bread and butter for everybody's benefit, was driven out of the state because of the regulations. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. So, ironically, the job I got as in that industry was industrial relations and safety manager, which means I was personnel, among other things. And this is the perfect microcosm I'll give you. When I grew up in a little town on the Central Coast called Lompoc. It was a quaint little, cute little town. My best friend was Jamie Gonzalez. Jamie Gonzalez's parents both came from Mexico. His older sister was born in Mexico. His dad worked in industry. They have a big diatomaceous earth plant in Lompoc. Again, industry. His dad worked in that industry for 40 years. His mother was a seamstress. They owned 2 homes. That daughter that was born in Tijuana ended up getting one of the first PhDs in computer science from UC Santa Barbara. All of the kids except one went to college, and the one that didn't go chose not to go. And again, he could afford that as a first-generation immigrant because he had an industrial job that paid double, quadruple, or 5 times minimum wage at least. When I hired people from Union Sugar, that's the company, it was a 90-year-old company that's no longer here. I hired a lot of former field workers. And I realized one day I was sitting there hiring a field worker that couldn't speak English. I realized I just hired Jamie's dad. I just hired somebody that went from field work to factory work, from seasonal work to year-round, few benefits to full-time benefits. He's on his way to the middle class. And these are the jobs that got destroyed in California by the tens of thousands. And so what we have now in California, and you hit it on the head, we have the rich and the poor. The middle class has been destroyed, and now we have a permanent urban underclass that has nowhere to go in terms of upward mobility.
So I want to ask you a question, because I was deeply touched by what you said. You hired somebody who was a field worker moving into middle class, and then they developed themselves, because we're not talking about anything other than the intrinsic benefit, real human condition of, I want to grow, I want to be better. So why is it, if you can, because you've been involved in this, do you have any sense of why it is that for want of a better term, the very rich, the elites, saw in their great wisdom that manufacturing should be driven out of the state by overregulation? Why would they even consider such a thing?
There's a couple of different facets to that. Number one, and you hit on it, So Santa Barbara is the political power base for the Central Coast where we are. And they live in paradise. They do not want paradise to change. And so they want to get rid of anything and everything that will affect their lives in any way, shape, or form, including, and this is the wicked.
One moment. This is a cliffhanger. We love this stuff in this new media. We have sponsors that love our show, and we wouldn't have them on if we didn't think you're worthy of your time. So we're going to go to a quick break, and you're just stay on the edge of your seat because Andy's going to give you the inside scoop on stuff that nobody ever knew before. We'll be right back after this brief message. Don't go away. Andy's coming back.
Hello, skincare connoisseurs. If you think you have tried everything in skincare, you are going to love what I am about to tell you. I'm pharmacist Benjamin I. Fuchs. I'm a dermatology pharmacist. And what I've discovered in my compounding pharmacy after decades of working with patients with skin traumas and skin diseases is the missing link in skincare is topical essential nutrition. And because of this missing link, we're not maximizing the potential of topical skincare. We're leaving skin beauty and skin health on the table. And that's why I formulated my Truth Treatments. Listen, the skin's an organ. It needs and wants and craves nutrients, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, and plant-derived minerals, and now it can get them in super high concentrations in my Truth Treatments. Originally formulated for dermatologists and their patients, now they're available to you. Check them out today at truthtreatments.com, and I know you are going to love the truth.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Maybe you're good-looking, so always looking for and finding the good. We found good in abundance. Our cup runneth over with good. His name is Andy Caldwell. Andy, if I started reading all the things that he's accomplished, would take the rest of the show. I'm going to give you 2 points. Number one, he's a good person who's been working for decades, more than 35 years, to help people work in the middle class, which has been destroyed in one of the greatest societies that ever existed, which is called Southern California. And the second thing is that he's smart, he's caring, he's incisive. So Andy, we left you on the cliff, the edge of the cliff. You're about to tell us, why is it, in your opinion, that manufacturing became regulated, overregulated, and driven out from this great place called Southern California, from the coast all the way to the inland to the Nevada border, by a group of people living in Santa Barbara, you said? I mean, when we say Santa Barbara,
Santa Barbara is one of the power centers, chief power centers on the Central Coast. Lots of wealth and political power centered there. They discovered paradise, right? They live some of the best weather, views, everything else. They're close to Southern California, especially Hollywood and other places that they need to own a business or go make a film or a TV show or whatever. So they wanted nothing to change it. They found paradise and they didn't want anything to threaten its existence. So the first thing they did is we want no growth. No growth, right? They did not want Santa Barbara to turn into another San Fernando Valley or Orange County or anything else like that. So the first thing on the agenda was no growth. Well, what drives growth is job creation, right? So we finally did the math. If you look at the population of the greater Santa Barbara area, which includes Montecito, one of the richest zip codes in the country, the majority of people there are either college students, independently wealthy, trust fund babies, and or people that own second, third, or fourth homes in this community. And the number one industry there, besides higher education, is the tourist industry. So by definition, virtually nobody makes their living in Santa Barbara based on the local economy, because the tourist industry is translocal, right? It's people coming from other areas. And so they didn't need economic growth, and they figured economic growth is going to spur housing growth, and housing growth is going to make us another Orange County. And I'll tell you one of the most ridiculous examples of this was a little over 20 plus years ago. California, which is the largest populated state in the country, and it's very long. Everybody knows the geography. It's very long. We only have 2 freeways that go all the way up and all the way back down. And it's the 5 and the 101. Well, the 101 in Santa Barbara still had stoplights on the freeway, right? And when people try to get the stoplights, they finally got the stoplights out, and they were the last ones on that freeway in the entire state. But then we started getting gridlock, and people wanted to widen it to 3 lanes. And they go, no, 3 lanes reminds us of Los Angeles. And I testified, it's not 3 lanes that reminds you of Los Angeles. It's bumper to bumper traffic that reminds you of Los Angeles. Well, anyway, they killed a Caltrans project to widen the freeway. And there was literally a lady crying into the microphone at a hearing, you're going to have to tear out Bougainvillea if you widen the freeway.
Wait a minute. I want everybody to understand something. I need to put you on pause because I'm smiling because I've driven on the 101. I've driven to Santa Barbara, through Santa Barbara many, many times before I left Southern California a few years ago. Bougainvillea are beautiful plants, mostly reddish and purple and such like that. And then they're lovely to look at. And what Andy is describing, and he's not kidding. I want everyone to understand this. He's not kidding when he says this, that this particular person, in her opinion, that was as if you were ripping out her heart and therefore causing pain. It wasn't just the plants. She understood if those plants go, there goes our life. That's what you're saying, right, Andy?
This is what they're living for. I'll tell you one other story, and then we can get to more important stuff. So the other thing that's happened is Santa Barbara has some of the most highest housing prices in the country, right? If you limit growth, then the price goes up. It's supply and demand. So there's this one property they wanted to develop, and way back when, there was supposed to be 1,000 homes on this property. And they knew that would never get approved. So they actually, and this happens more often than not, they said, well, let us build 20 luxury homes and we'll put the rest of the property in some kind of preserve, right? Well, then the county told the developer that there were boulders that would have to be moved for the housing project, and they had lichen on them, which is a form of a moss. And they told him, you're going to have to come up with a lichen restoration program or else you're going to destroy the lichen on these rocks you're going to move.
Okay, wait a minute. Again, there are people around the world who are leaning in and they're incredulous, meaning they think that you're exaggerating. They don't, because people can't believe what you're telling them. That educated, intelligent, sophisticated, seemingly well-meaning human beings are literally arguing and saying you cannot move those boulders because there's lichen, which is a moss essentially. Is not, but what's behind it is what Andy is telling us, that there's a group, either knowingly or unknowingly, by the way, it may even be conscious, they didn't want growth. In other words, there's a no growth movement that we'll talk about in just a moment in the United Kingdom and spreading throughout Europe. The no growth movement that you're discussing in Santa Barbara area affected not just themselves, which in and of itself would be fine. They don't want growth there. That's great. What it did mean is that it did affect adversely tens of thousands of businesses, millions of people, and caused a ripple effect 30 plus years later that still is causing Southern California to be reeling from a huge population, a large, as you called it, underclass that really has very little opportunity to move out from it. This is, now you said there were 2 things. The first one was no growth. Was there another one you want to?
Let me give you a quote that ties all this together.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Andy. Again, people are not listening. They're not believing some of what you're telling them because they say, that's not possible. You can't move a boulder. Yes.
So this is insidious. The cost of preserving the high quality of life in Santa Barbara County includes limiting opportunities for others. It limits economic growth, but that is a legitimate political choice.
Is that a quote from somebody?
The planning department director of the county about 30 years ago. The cost of preserving the high quality of life in Santa Barbara County includes limiting opportunities for others, but that is a legitimate political choice.
Okay.
Preserve the high quality of life in Santa Barbara County. That tells you this was purposeful.
This is purposeful. And I don't know if it even matters. I'm going to ask you the question. If you either can't or won't answer it, that's fine. Since it was a legitimate political aim, are we talking about politics on the right side of the aisle or the left side of the aisle?
Left. Far left. And yet, many of the people that benefited from it are on the right. So, for instance, in Montecito, there were a lot of wealthy Republicans. They didn't want their community to change either.
So they recognized that what the radical environmentalists, we'll call them, because that actually what they were lefties who wanted to maintain their own lifestyle. Yeah. However, they took up the banner of radical environmentalism because it feels better to say, look what we're preserving. We're not preserving our way of life. We're here for the environment.
Exactly. You got it.
And therefore, the other people, the Republicans, could have the blind eye, as it were, and say, well, gee, okay, why not? We don't like them, particularly on their politics. However, hey, good for us.
Yeah.
This is insidious. And so everything you're saying is true with a capital T.
Yep.
So what is CoLAB? Let's go. I mean, by the way, I want to make mention of something, and I'm going to go in the weeds a little bit here, and we will cut down these weeds even without permission. Andy is what I call a muckraker. Now, anybody who doesn't know what a muckraker is, you should look it up. It's a great word. It was a word that was coined by TR, and those are not the first two letters of Trump's name, TR, Teddy Roosevelt, who was a great trust buster and a big advocate of environmentalism, by the way, in the true sense, and also about the consolidation of power for the benefit of the few against the many during the beginning part of the 20th century, early 1900s. And one of the famous muckrakers of the time was a fellow named Upton Sinclair, who helped, amongst other things, expose the insidiousness of the meatpacking industry in Chicago, amongst other things, and how bad it was and such. So if I may say and give you the accolade, is it fair to call you a muckraker, Andy?
I've been called worse. I think it's accurate.
Okay, you've been called with, instead of the M at the beginning, they put an F. Okay, but I give it to you as a badge of honor. Are you willing to accept it?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So please tell us now again, what does it mean to be this local government watchdog? Is this part of CoLAB? In other words, looking at this and seeing it with wide eyes open and recognizing that this is harmful to human beings rather than worrying about lichen on boulders?
Well, that's the whole issue. You know, the issue is that what we wanted decisions makers to do is to balance the environment with the economy and realize they were there to serve people. And that, you know, for instance, farmers and ranchers. Our farmers and ranchers here control most of the land. They're not going to destroy the land. They would destroy their livelihood. And so letting them prosper is the best way to preserve against growth and preserve against environmental degradation. Our issue here is that people need a job, and not everybody's going to go to college, including the farm worker population here are almost entirely immigrant. And we, on the Central Coast, and this is hard for the rest of the world, even the rest of the country to understand, we have what's called specialty crops here. So the majority of agriculture in America is, you know, wheat and barley and corn and things.
We'll call that big farming products.
Big farming, where you plant it with the machine, you harvest it with the machine, and you're done, right? Well, we have specialty crops. We grow lettuce and broccoli and strawberries and avocados and lemons, and but a lot of the field crops, including strawberry, are extremely labor intensive. So we have a ginormous population from Oaxaca, Mexico, and these people are neither speak English or Spanish, right? And so they have no education, can't read or write English or Spanish. They're not going to get a high-tech job, you know? So when people say we need high-tech jobs, I say, well, some people need high-tech jobs. Other people need jobs. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example of one of the manufacturing concerns that left here. It's called Aero Automotive. And Aero Automotive, they were one of the original recyclers in America. They would have, when you have, let's say you're an auto shop or a do-it-yourselfer, you would turn in your used alternator or starter motor. And then they give you a brand new one or a refurbished one. Well, that dirty alternator got shipped to Aero Automotive. And Aero Automotive would sandblast and degrease the outside of it, take it apart, put in new parts, and then paint it, baked on paint, right? Because it's got to be.
Okay, wait a minute. I want to put on pause for a moment for people to understand that what Andy just described: sandblasting, painting. These are things considered toxic in Southern California. These are things that nobody should be exposed to. Nobody should have to work like that. And therefore, we have to close these places down. We, the good people, are here to save lives. At the same time, you can't have jobs. You need to go to Oaxaca again. And therefore, you can never, ever earn a living, and you may starve to death. Now, I don't mean you won't starve. However, it's quite possible that you'll never have the opportunity to live a good life. So now I'm beginning to understand more what it is that you're saying here. And again, you're talking about apparently the far left, who they don't like anything to do with people working with their hands and in industries.
Yeah. And then, so that plant closed. So I'll give you another one. So there's a company called Okanite. Now they're still here. Okanite makes ginormous cables, for instance, to light up the Statue of Liberty. Okay, that's the kind of projects they work on, ginormous electrical cables. Well, a buddy of mine was an engineer there, and he told me about this story. So they make this, wiring, and then they encase it in this rubber type housing, and then they would use an inkjet sprayer to spray a legend on the outside of the cable, saying this is Okanite cable, width, breadth, capacity, date of manufacture. Our air pollution control district made that company monitor ink emissions from the inkjet sprayer, the labeler, all in the name of clean air. Now they're still here, but there's a bunch of other companies that are gone. Some that process ag, the recycler, Aero Automotive, a lot of the other ones are all gone. And, and I'll give you another example. This is something that the Endangered Species Act. Now, nobody wants endangered species to go extinct, right? That's the purpose of it. Well, no species will go extinct on our watch. Well, so you have endangered species, but now what you have is the subspecies of a subspecies of a subspecies getting protected. So, for instance, if you go to Minnesota, the land of about 10,000 lakes, you can buy what they call a water dog for bait. A water dog is a salamander. And the specific, there's tiger salamanders. So there's tiger salamanders, there's salamanders, and there's tiger salamanders. Then there's California tiger salamanders, and now we have Santa Barbara County tiger salamanders are declared an endangered species, even though you can buy them in Minnesota for bait.
Okay, wait a minute. This speaks to the genius of government
and activist judges.
And that, right. So on this high note, we're going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back with more Andy. You don't want to go away because this is revelatory, and it is one at the same time fascinating and quite depressing. But we'll be back on a high note right after this brief message. Don't go away.
What if you could shop at your favorite local stores, swipe your current credit card, and get extra cashback rewards? And what if you could also have donations sent to your favorite cause at no extra cost to you? What if this amazing program was absolutely free and very simple to set up? Well, What If is here. Welcome to Einstein Cares, where your everyday shopping gives you and your favorite cause extra money. It's fast, it's easy, and effortless.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, good-looking. So I was looking for and finding the good. We found good in abundance. He is muckraker #1 in the 21st century, Andy Caldwell, and he is a local government watchdog. His group is called CoLAB, which is an organization of labor and agriculture and business. I remember that. Andy, during the break, I came up with an acronym for your name. May I share it with you?
Sure.
ANDY. Awareness nurtures determination yearly.
Well, thank you for that.
Because you're in there deep. So let's talk about, again, you gave us an example of the famous salamander and the snail darter and down the line. And again, for the purpose not of benefiting humans and maybe not even in the environment. That's really what bothers me personally. In other words, if you're really benefiting the environment, I can almost understand it. Pollution in California, Southern California, was horrible at some point. Mm-hmm. Well, got together and we were able to clean it up, like did in Pittsburgh and other places and such like that. However, to the detriment of humans, that doesn't work. You see, it's not that humans are first, humans are second, third, fourth, or fifth. And especially working humans as opposed to the people who have already. And tourism is now one of the biggest businesses in Southern California. Let's be blunt. Like you mentioned, tourism, education, those are the real businesses of Southern California. I want to make mention of something about no growth because you talked about it. How does this affect businesses? Let's say somebody has a pizza chain with 20 locations or something like that. And now with all the regulations coming in on how much you can pay and how much the hours and things like that, how does all these regulations now come and take businesses that want to thrive, that don't seem to be doing sandblasting and painting, and they're under threat?
Well, let me take a segue there. Okay. So our backyard was Vandenberg Air Force Base. It's now Vandenberg Space Force Base. So Elon Musk is launching out of there, and a couple other companies are launching out of there now on a weekly basis. The California Coastal Commission tried to shut him down because the noise of the launch would upset seals.
Wait a minute. Everybody here around the world, because those launches would upset seals. And we don't mean Navy SEALs. We're talking about seals that have flippers and such. Yes. And Andy's not kidding, by the way. And Elon Musk, in his great wisdom, and I do applaud him, said, if you're going to be that crazy, I'm leaving. Is that correct?
Well, what he did is he moved part of his headquarters out of the state, but he's still launching for Vandenberg. But thankfully, with President Trump as the commander-in-chief, They told the California Coastal Commission, this is a military base. You have no authority over what we do here.
The good news, by the way, and again, for people who don't know around the world listening, that's called the federal trumping the state. And I'm using it as a pun because Mr. Trump, because of it, if the previous administration had continued, that wouldn't have happened. I mean,
no, they were starting to try to negotiate. The California Coastal Commission is the most wicked state organization in our state. And I'll tell you what's going on here. You touched on it. What they want is they use the Endangered Species Act and the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act not to protect the environment, but to control growth. Because they claim that any form of development is a threat to the environment. And so there's this thing, though, the people that started Earth First started an organization called the Wildlands Project. And they mapped the western side of our continent, all the way from Alaska down to Central America, like Costa Rica and that. They mapped the coast, and they drew a line around all of the developed areas, like Los Angeles and San Francisco and that. And they said, okay, this is lost, but what we're going to do is we're going to file lawsuits for endangered species and, more importantly, critical habitat designations to tie up the land for farming, ranching, housing, mining, and even recreation. So that tiger salamander, the subspecies of a subspecies of a subspecies of a subspecies, it lays claim to 180,000 acres, almost half of Santa Barbara County. The other half of the county is the Los Padres National Forest. So they lock up the land so that without paying for it, because the Constitution would say if you take land, you have to compensate, but they put a regulatory overlay over the land so nobody can get a permit to use it.
I'm rarely speechless. However, I will pause for this moment to be speechless. I will share with you something that I think you know, but I'm going to share with our listening audience around the world. The California Coastal Commission, in its great wisdom, and that is a tongue-in-cheek when I say that, refused to allow desalination plants along the coast, even though they agree that it would be an enormous benefit for certainly for California, because water is one of our most precious resources, and it's, excuse the pun, drying up and it's certainly becoming less available than it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago. And desalination actually is at the point today where it's economically feasible. However, it would endanger they said certainly, I think you said maybe, it would endanger certain species or subspecies or subspecies of fish and wildlife along the coast. So they have the power, and we're talking about, I think, 5 people on the commission, maybe it's 7. And again, they have branches and such. But the main California Coastal Commission unanimously, you hear this? Am I correct on this, Andy?
I don't know if it was unanimous, but they killed it.
Yes. Desalination, water, which we need desperately. And it's there and it's available, and it would only benefit. Andy, I'm actually quite loath to say the words I'm about to say to you. We're coming to a close on our time together today. And this is wonderful. I have 3 quick questions for you. You ready?
Yes.
Number 1, will you come back again?
Absolutely. I enjoy you very much.
Thank you. Number 2, Andy Caldwell, you have only 80 seconds to answer this question. What is your most fervent desire?
To hear, well done, good and faithful servant.
I think you're doing that. That's wonderful to be able to live your desire. Thank you. And number 3, may I give you a hug in front of 512,917 people around the world?
Surely.
Okay, let me tell you what HUG stands for. Heartfelt, unlimited giving. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Remember, you're listening to The Joy of Living with your humble host, Barry Shore, the ambassador of joy. Notice I didn't say the ambassador of joy. The ambassador of joy and wonderful Andy Caldwell. He is 21st century muckraker, and that's a great title to have. And he's he has a great, amazing organizational CoLAB, and you learned a lot today of truth, and it's so wonderful. Remember, the reason you're here is because you care the most in the entire world about you. Andy's a great guy, Barry's a great guy, but this show is all about you. You becoming the best you, and being informed is part of becoming the best you, because when you're the best you, you make the world a better place. You build more joy, you build happiness, bridges of harmony and peace and love in the world. Remember, use the 3 fundamentals of life and you'll be happier, healthier, and wealthier. 3 fundamentals are: number 1, life, your life has purpose. Number 2, you lead a purpose-driven life, you go mad. MAD stands for go make a difference. Number 3 is to use the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms, and you'll be happier, healthier, and wealthier. Because why? Think about www. What a wonderful world. Smile, seeing miracles in life every day. As my 8-year-old niece says, seeing miracles in everyday life. Create the kind of world you want to live in, a world of truth where everybody is benefiting and humanity stands number 1. And create cause rethinking, as you've heard from Andy. He's enabling us to rethink, causing rethinking, enabling all to excel. And when you do that, you can shift your perspective. You want to keep that F in place, or the other stuff happens. And then you can internalize, utilize, and leverage the 6 most important words you'll ever learn, which are choice, not chance, determines your destiny. How you choose to respond in any given situation determine your path in life and your trajectory. Use 4-letter words. Now, of course, the words that we use in the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant are love, life, hope, play, free, gift, swim. And the 4-letter FU word, fun. FU, capital N, capital S. After the show, see your family and friend, point your finger, tell everybody FU, capital N, capital N. Say, where'd you get that? I listened to Barry Shore, The Joy of Living. And what did I learn today? You got their attention, you can share. And speaking of share, remember, please love us, follow us on Spotify and Apple, and share this with 5 people. You want to share with 50 or 100? That's great, but at least 5. So then we can touch 10. We can just 500,000, 2.5 million people around the world, and then keep asking your family and friends to join us. And what I'd like to do is give a blessing from Andy and Barry. You ready, Andy?
Yes.
And the blessing is, go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad. Go make a difference. Don't go away.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joy of Living podcast. Now that's another step towards your healthier, happier, and wealthier life. Never hesitate to do good in the world, no matter what the situation. Join us for another upbeat discussion next time at barryshore.com. And be sure to leave a rating and subscribe to the show to get more conversations like this. And remember to share it with your family and friends too. See you on the next episode.